Good morning, good afternoon, good evening, colleagues. Welcome to the monthly webinars of the Local Government and Municipal Authorities Constituency. This is our COP30 debrief round in the month of December. As our usual practice, we will give a couple of more seconds for all the participants to settle down so that we can start smoothly. And we appreciate your patience for those who have already arrived. And thank you very much for your interest. Um, I think we could now relatively start. We are more or less ready to to kick off. My name is Yunus Arikan. I'm Director of Global Advocacy at ICLEI Local Governments for Sustainability, and I am delivering this or facilitating this presentation in my capacity, or this webinar in my capacity as the LGMA focal point on behalf of ICLEI. Those I see some new names in our participant list, which is great. Always good to have new colleagues. We will just remind ourselves that this is a repetitive webinar, which is repeated also in the same day in two different time zones in order to enable Eastern and Western Hemisphere participants to attend appropriately. These webinars are recorded, and you will receive the link to the recording on that will be published on our YouTube channel together with the presentation. We usually encourage participants to attend the presentation, which takes around 35 to 40 minutes. Time to time, we have partners contributing, depending on the agenda. But then the last 20 minutes or so, we open the space for question and answer or additional inputs if possible. In today's agenda, I will primarily be supported with by my colleague Ariel Dekovitz from ICLEI's Climate Communications Manager, but also leading the LGMA Communications Working Group. And we are aware we are still recovering from COP31 in both physical health and psychologically. So there is also a possibility that some of our partners may be off, some of them may not be fit to join us. So we are flexible to be interactive during the session, especially with our lead partners, some of which you see in this new slide where the photo is reflecting some of the lead members of the LGMA constituency. So we will also do our best to accommodate that they can contribute, especially in the sections when Ariel is going through much more details about how we mobilize ourselves in Belém. So with this, without further ado, let's continue. Those who are new to us, we are the voice of subnationals, cities, towns, regions in the United States process since '95. And this is indeed one of our pride that we have been in this process, but we are evolving and we navigate to our interventions, action agenda, local governments, presidents who are leading this process, and of course, together with the parties, we try to influence the outcomes. We said that we had gone through this four phases. I think that's really summarizes with all the discussion we'll have about Belém, what is achieved or not. But there is one thing for sure: a new era is starting. So we all believe that it will be a fresh start now with the Belém, with the NDCs, with the discussions. But we are proud that this is a result of our more than 3 decades of our work. Those who are following this, if you have not subscribed yourself to our bulletin, feel free to subscribe yourself, because that also gives you the links and other information that we were not able to cover. It's also monthly, and especially these registration were also the moments where you will be able to receive our daily bulletins from the COPs, and we will continue to do so in the future agendas. Obviously, we will get back to you all for our revised calendar for the webinars and the formats and structures, which will be part of the discussion we will have today for 2026 and 2027. Um, Most of our information also are almost 100% now available on our website, the COP30 section. It consists all our updates, interventions, and I will go through it. Um, let's remember we have reached to this moment with the role that both the outgoing or in the current the incoming presidency who was elected on the day one as the president. It's not anymore the president designate, obviously, but they are now the president. But the Azerbaijan government, who have handed over from Baku, played a huge role, obviously, like every presidency throughout the year. Also, during the negotiations, Azerbaijan was particularly very active, especially in brokering the deal between Turkey, Australia, and Brazil, and Azerbaijan have played a role. So we commend all the leadership once again. I will get back to the slide later on with the revised version when we start to talk about COP20, COP31 to 2, COP32 process as well. Just let's remember how we have all started this process at the beginning of this year. We had discussed our strategies in June when we came to the mid-year talks. We said that we will be going on three dimensions. The before Belém, this will be the success depending on the ambition from the national leadership and contribution to national climate plans. We wanted to push them so that our work was at home at the national level. Then in the negotiations throughout these 2 weeks, and beyond Belém. Obviously, what you will hear today is a summary of these number one and number two, and beyond Belém is obviously just those who are familiar. The UN Environment Assembly is already going currently in Nairobi, so there is a strong relation on what has been outcome, and even Brazil, especially as the presidency, has also started to already implement some of these outcomes. We will talk about it. So beyond Belém will be an agenda, both as part of our COP30 vision, but particularly on our roadmap towards Addis. Um, Before I hand over to my colleague Ariel, I just wanted to give two slides on how we interpret what has happened in Belém, and we will also have the next slide on the LGMA, let's say, focused in a bit more strategic level. What we see the COP30 is that let's remember the framing conditions. It was not easy because already national governments from the global north and south, they were weakening their ambitions, the NDCs, number of NDCs, their ambition level were not required or fitting to the science or the figures that were recommended by the UN. And we were already seeing backsliding in many of the commitments. The countries, even that we were always relying on them to being ambitious, they were starting to redesign or rediscuss, which was not helping all of us. So that created already a difficulty. Of course, the biggest issue on this collective effort between global north and south is the availability of finance for the global south. And this was already weakening on the way to Belém. The national governments in the global north, particularly, announced reduction of their budgets, and this was creating a problem because global south was always saying that they can only make their ambition higher if they receive the necessary funding or the finance from the global south. These commitments, 1.3 trillion, was on the paper, but practically there were a lot of question marks, which of course influenced what we could expect in Belém. And geopolitics, you all know, you're aware, the traditional coalitions are not anymore active. There are new coalitions. Those who were foes became friends. Those who were friends became foes. And this, of course, changed the way decisions are adopted. And obviously, most of them are beyond the climate politics. It is part of the geopolitics, but it was a reality that impacted everything. Of course, the second point is that how COP30 presidency took these all on board. It was a unique opportunity because this is the third time Brazil was hosting a global event over these 35 years. It was 92, which was the Earth Summit, where Brazil was proud to host the Earth Summit and the concept of sustainability, the three Rio conventions. They came back into the global stage once again in Rio Plus 20, but it was a bit more like a handover to a new era. Therefore, they were not too much pushing too much on the content of it. But with this COP30, with the submission of NDCs, the conclusion of Paris Agreement, and taking into account all the experience from Rio Convention and UN, presidency was trying to introduce that it should be this should be a COP which brings truth and implementation. This you can feel that this is the spirit that is back from the Earth Summit, that they wanted to revive this notion of that it is not just documents that we are agreeing on, it's changing the lives, That's what they particularly was showing the leadership in put hosting it in Belém, bringing people to the process and the process back to the people. It was not easy. Brazil is a very complex but a very dynamic country. The relation with indigenous people, their relation with local indigenous was all very important to all of us. So they were trying to build bridges. They were aware that it will not be easy to push ambition from the global north, and there were a significant pressure from the global south. Let's remember, Brazil is a part of BRICS country. It's a powerful G7 and G7 China country. If you look at the discussions that evolve, that you can feel that they particularly was trying to accommodate that global south is not leaving this process despite all these negative messages coming up. And I think this was an interesting strategy that we will discuss on that the next agenda as well. Beyond COP was a particular focus from the Brazilian ambassador, Ambassador Lago. Particularly, he was saying that let me finish this COP and I will still deliver a lot of things in my capacity as president or Brazil. But he was saying that please let us adopt, let us conclude. And this is an interesting approach. It gives the hints that in the announcements that you have heard, there will be more and more role that they will not be just saying that, oh, we hosted the COP and we're going out. Particularly, they will be delivering many of the things that are pending. In terms of LGMA, I think we were strategic. We were strategic in the sense that we will like to go from action agenda to a process which is integrating multi-level and urban into the climate agenda in a more integrated, systematic, and as a standalone process. We were aware it would not be easy, but we did our best that all our discussions is paving to the way that from Belém we leave with a solid foundation, and then we will pay for the way forward. We were diverse. It was really very clear that the role of the networks, the role of our leaders, political leaders, and the role of our ministers of urban and ministers of climate, they all played their role. I think it was one of the success story for us throughout the year. The LGMA position you will hear from Ariel was really framing the discussion about how to integrate what the asks from our leaders, which was formulated in local leaders forum, to the process. And obviously, ministers have also slightly different ways of this interpretation, the outcome statement and all this stuff. These three avenues or three work streams, I think, give us the power that we were reflecting all these different elements and that this is fed into the negotiations. We were really high level, obviously. From Rio to Belém, there were a limited number of delegations, but still we had so many mayors and subnational leaders and governors at the highest level, but also technical level, present in Belém. And the opening statement from COP30 president, the first sentences from the President Lula, the way he met with our leaders in the second week when he came back to Belém, the way UN Secretary General has engaged with us, it was significantly higher than what we have seen over these past years. So this was giving the confidence for us that yes, there are some parties who may not wish to see what our positions on the table, but we have a strong backup, especially from a presidency like Brazil. We were very advantageous, and I think they did their best to help us and to move the needle further. From our perspective, legacy, and I will then give the floor to my colleague Ariel. We have negotiated outcomes. First of all, the direct outcomes. We have a Montreal text, which really says a combination of the Paris Agreement text and the Dubai text, which is cities and other subnational authorities in a multi-level climate action, So that I think is something that we can still build on. We have some good references in the mitigation, especially on the waste. There were even discussions on the governance, multi-level governance in the waste and mitigation sector, which was not the case in the previous years. Adaptation indicators, there are several chapters. These are the concrete ones that are directly referencing to us directly. There are indirect outcomes that we should be happier or engaged with, which is, first of all, just transition is a topic we are all playing actively at home, role from Sweden to US to South Africa to all the countries. We are saying that just transition can be delivered with local energy government. So having a mechanism under the UN is, of course, the details will be discussed later on, but it's something that is good for all of us and we will be actively involved. Gender plan, again, another topic. It was a topic that is also always that we are being saying that you cannot let these actions by the leaving people and behind. And in our leadership, we had seen so many female leaders and other leaders going forcing this idea. So it's good that there is also a legacy for that. And the action agenda, not just Axis 4, but there is a global implementation accelerator. There's a Belém mission, which is not just the national government. So these are the things that we will be using our work to follow up from Belém onwards. And implicit, of course, the COP30 president's roadmaps on deforestation, on transition will be helpful for us, even though it's not clear, but these are the topics that we are working on. Nature, we are talking about on and transition from fossil fuels. These will be very valuable for us. The multi-level NDCs is something that it's not gone. They are there and they are waiting for it to be implemented. Of course, Champ having a new energy from the outcome from Rio and Belém, new leadership, new governance mechanisms, new countries on board. This is powerful, and many of the Champ countries have good NDCs, and we will work on it. The UN Habitat analysis on urban components was powerful. It was also supporting the UNFCCC presidency's work, UNFCCC analysis. Obviously, this data will help us to move forward. And the UNFCCC one-stop shop on multi-level and action we have developed together with Philip Young, we will try to build on it. And of course, finally, when we are all back home, we will go back to our councils, we will go back to our constituency. The spirit and mobilization through town hall COPs, I think, is still valuable so that we can bring the discussion further. Ariel, these were now, let's say, bird's eye view. It was a fantastic demonstration of our diversity of experts on the ground and virtually. We were not able to see you in Belém in person, but your presence, even remotely from Bonn and virtually, was even much better because you managed us to bring all these things and in one shape and communicate widely. So let's hear from you. What was our mobilization in Belém?
Great. Yeah, thanks, Eunice, and hello to everyone who I, interacted with in various ways throughout the 2 weeks. And congratulations to everyone on the incredible work of the constituency. I was so proud to see what we were able to accomplish together, and look forward to, yeah, taking learnings from this year into the following years. So I'm going to go through this a little bit with that in mind. So not necessarily just talking about what we did, but some of the things that I think worked really well and what didn't. And obviously, we're looking for feedback from all of you on this as well. So the first thing this year was our negotiation documents. For the first time, divided into kind of a bit of a logical flow, let's say. So the first position, go to the next slide, um, is the actual joint position itself, and just some of the background information on this. The idea was that we have a short document that could be endorsed easily by networks. The governance functions of our networks are sometimes very different. In some of our networks, there really has to be a vote on whether or not to take up a position. In other ways, networks are empowered to make those decisions within the operation level themselves. So we had to create a flexible document that would respond to the needs of our networks. This year, we were able to make it available in Spanish, Portuguese, and French. So that was exciting because obviously those are critical languages for the host country. And obviously, we want to make it as widely available as possible. Um, for the endorsements, we took a different tack this year. And again, I think this was something that was really, really powerful. So rather than asking, widely opening up the paper or the position for endorsements from networks or local governments or regional governments, we actually asked local and regional governments who came forward and said they wanted to endorse to go back to their national associations, to go back to the regional associations that they might be a part of, and ask them to endorse the position. And this meant that we actually reached a much higher level of, I think, coverage, of global coverage, of endorsement. We had local governments, educating their own national associations about the position. And I think it just really reflected, the growing kind of widespread knowledge about the LGMA, about this the sort of role that we play within the for networks, particularly within the UNFCCC. So this was a really great kind of new approach this year, and I was happy to see the success of that. The next document we had was our guidance document. And yeah, it's kind of a generic name because it contains a lot of different topics that really get towards the negotiations themselves. And I was also excited this year to see the breadth of the topics. So I think in past years we've had just transition, we've had climate finance. This year we were able to expand to include a section on multi-level governance and urbanization, to include a section on food, a very important emerging topic, and a section on the action agenda. So again, this is much more technical language. It's sorry, you can go back a slide. This is much more about yeah, about what the negotiators can actually do within the text. And I think it's very helpful to have as the kind of background um, for understanding what was a part of the position. And then it looks like maybe the slides are out of order. So I don't know. Uh, yeah, sorry. There should be a slide on the national. It might not be in there. So we did have, there's one other piece that I just wanted to talk about, and it connects to the last point that Eunice was making. So this document was released during COP. It was our compendium of national mobilization strategies, and this contained four different strategies in it. So CHAMP, town hall COPs, subnational transition plans, and the country platforms for finance. And all of these topics had, were covered in cities and regions hub sessions and other sessions at COP, really bringing together kind of what is on offer for countries, for parties to mobilize during the year, all year round, connect their local and regional governments to their NDCs, really offers of assistance to make possible, what we're asking for in the rest of the position. And this, I think, lessons learned. This came out a bit late. That's probably on my part mostly. But I think going forward, this is also a very strong document that doesn't have to be, contained within COP and is something that could be expanded and utilized by the entire constituency in terms of having those offers available not only to national governments, but then also to those 50 plus national associations as really clear, offers of how to connect with their national government. So I was quite excited about that, and I think that's another piece that can really be a great part of our toolkit if used in an effective way. Okay, so then another piece we wanted to highlight was the LGMA COP30 outcome statement. This was at the obviously at the end of COP when everything was said and done. We came up with kind of this um, position or a statement towards what had happened. I think it's a very balanced analysis of the COP. Obviously we have a lot of working relationships with the presidency that we want to continue forward in this coming year. So it was important to kind of recognize all of the ways that they really did advance the constituency's work, as well as the real outcomes that Eunice talked about that are going to help us to lay that foundation for the future. I was also very grateful, if you go back one slide, for the number of yeah, folks who contributed quotes. I think that also at the beginning, we had our opening press release that also contained statements from a number of networks within the constituency. And I think it just, really shows the depth and the diversity and the unity of the constituency by having these kinds of, whether it's in the endorsements or these statements within the opening and closing statements, or the quotes within the opening and closing statements. I think it just really, yeah, demonstrates this this force that the constituency is. So, um, Okay, then on to the local leaders forum outcome statement. So this came out of Rio. This statement very much aligns to what we were asking for in the LGMA position. It references LGMA, so very, very much aligned with what we're doing in the constituency, and also able to get this into the hands of the UN Secretary General ahead of COP within a meeting with President Lula. So I think again, as a kind of not just symbolic statement, but as an actual kind of piece that represents just what all of our networks and local and regional governments are trying to do, and then quite a number of endorsers here as well from a wide variety of networks as well. So this is another great, I think, win for generally the local and regional governments around the world, and certainly Lula. Yes. Uh, Apologies, I was doing this while I have my cold, so I'll blame it on that. But yes, very much a win there on this outcome statement. So okay, then I'm going to move on to the cities and regions hub. So uh, you know, not having been a cop, I think, those of you who experienced the blue zone this year, it was a very intense, hot space, literally and figuratively. The Cities and Regions Hub was this year, so co-convened by UN Habitat and the LGMA with Italy as the focal point, and then co-hosted by the Ministry of Cities. And this was part of a neighborhood of pavilions that all dealt with kind of the urban space, whether it's infrastructure or water or disaster response. All of these things were sort of contained in this shared space, trying to bring together the interests of the urban space into a contained place within the blue zone, with very much in partnership with the Ministry of Cities. And yeah, this year we had 46 events with 200 plus speakers. And I think it was a very much a dynamic space to showcase, to kind of back up everything that we were trying to bring to the negotiations, that at any day of the week you could go to the hub and really hear how cities and regions are making climate action happen on the ground. Some of the things that were um, championed there. So you can go back one slide. So first off, just sort of in levels, there were like very technical sessions, there were high level sessions on a wide variety of topics. We had, for instance, great connections to local finance on the finance day. So thank you, Carlos and team, for wonderful connections there. Showcasing of town hall COPs as a framework for connecting all levels of climate action. Champ and Surge were both raised many times throughout sessions. So again, really kind of providing that platform for the efforts that the constituency is doing year round. And I think that also the connections to the Ministry of Cities strengthened, and UN Habitat strengthens our constituency's connections to the ministerial, which of course have the Urbanization and Climate Ministerial, which happened on the 11th. So here are some views of it. We had a wonderful graffiti artist who did the art of the hub. So he's an urban a graffiti artist, and really, I think he understood the kind of what we were trying to achieve there and the feeling. It was just a beautiful work of art, literally. And then within the space, it's a little hard to tell from these photos, but in the neighborhood, there was a bit of a street feel with bike lanes and crosswalks and that kind of thing. So it was a very neat thing. Okay, and then last but not least, I'll just talk about the communications results. So in our small but mighty team of comms folks, and I really want to recognize the work of my colleagues at Under Two, Regions 4, UN Habitat coming together. So bringing comms resources into the work of the LGMA constituency, which is very useful, of course, with communications and advocacy being so closely linked. So for yeah, we've covered most of these things, but I think some of the things we haven't talked about are the daily videos that my colleague Matteo, some of you were starred in those videos. We're really trying to bring kind of the live from COP feeling back out to folks who were, not able to attend. And I think, mainly when you look at these results, what I want you to see is kind of hopefully you see yourselves represented there. This is an offer that we make to the constituency to try to, bring your announcements at COP, to bring those important moments at COP out to the world, to show the expertise that you all have within your organizations, and the assistance that you can provide. And so that's really what we're trying to do. Obviously, we're trying to improve that every year of how we do that. And yeah, very much very appreciative for all of you who work so closely with us, and I look forward to doing it more in the future. And just one other thing that I wanted to mention here, because we started measuring the media mentions this year, and we had a lot of great media mentions of the LGMA. I think especially our Brazilian colleagues were quite keen to include the LGMA in press releases that they were doing or articles that they were quoted in. So I'm very grateful also to that. I think it's an interesting measure of kind of brand voice and kind of the position of the LGMA, and it's something that we'll look to increase in the future. So you're going to get this deck afterwards. Here is a full list of all of the resources that we've talked about today. And I think that gets me to the end of my slides. Yes. Okay. Great. Thank you, everyone.
Thank you, Ariel, once again. Indeed, this really helps us to really see what we have achieved and how we managed it. And I think we should all be proud of our work, that it was really a collective effort. As you said, we have heard so many feedbacks during COP and after COP. The message definitely spread. And I think this will be one of our biggest strengths on the way forward. So congratulations to you and all the comms teams, Matteo and all my colleagues who were in and Belém and remotely joining this process. So two slides left, and then we will open the floor for a debate with all of our partners attending this webinar. So this is still the early discussions. This is as of 10th of December towards COP31 and COP32. It will be a unique model as we have seen from Glasgow, Sharm, Dubai, Baku. Every year we are experiencing some new innovations in this process. Sorry. And this year, for sure, the presidency will continue COP30 presidency, and I will revise it once again. It's not designate anymore; it's president. Um, but the one on the red, of course, some of those leaders may have a different role. For example, the envoys, special envoys, how will they continue in the process? We don't know yet, but there is hopefully some role that they can play. Obviously, they may have gradually decreased, but as you have seen yesterday, President Lula announced that Brazil, one of the members of OPEC and the country who has already issued uh, an exploration in the Amazon for fossil fuels or oil, has adopted a decision that President Lula wants the Brazilian government to complete their transition roadmap for transition from fossil fuels in 60 days. So there are limits of what you can agree, but then there are limits that you can act by leading. So Brazil will continue to be active in this process. As we said, deforestation and transition roadmaps, it is under the authority of the president. It's not a UNFCCC agreed language, but as you have seen, there will be some spillover effects. They already acknowledged the event, the non-proliferation fossil fuel treaty summit in Colombia as one of the things they will cover as well. Um, we will see how Copenhagen, Petersburg, whether they will be convened in the same sequence or in the same space. Usually, Copenhagen meetings was in March, and Petersburg is in May, just before the meetings in June in Bonn. Whether we will have Climate Week events, the traditional plan is that it will be, I mean, it will be more or less now clear that in the first 6 months, towards the end, again, May, we are expecting one. And this year they say that it will be in Asia, and one of them will be Eastern Europe. and then we will have this SB meetings in Bonn. Pre-COP31 is clear it will be Pacific. It's not clear where it will be held. If you can listen to the press conferences and others, Vanuatu may be one of the potential hosts, but again, we don't know this. And now the Global Implementation Accelerator and Belém 1.5 roadmap, it is not just governments. It is different from the previous years. It is more also all the actors in the, especially the axis of action agenda, will be invited to be engaged. Obviously, Brazil had a huge mobilization from their national governments and national partners. How much they will take it forward and how much the incoming presidencies will work on it, we have to see. Coming back to of course handover to the COP31 presidency is a unique model that no one, including the partners who are involved, I think, are aware how it will be rolled out. Turkey and Australia are sharing some roles. For sure, COP31 president designate is Turkey, and we will see who will be appointed, whether from Minister of Environment or, as you have seen in different countries, there were ministers of foreign affairs that they could play these roles in a different manner. Turkey will appoint the high-level climate action champion. And one thing we have to add here is that they will host the Leaders Summit. They announced that it will be clearly one of the things they will have. COP31, President of Negotiations, a title that we have not seen before. For example, again, COP30 CEO title was also not in the past available. So these are innovations that every presidency is introducing to the process. So it will be Australia. And I think it's more or less clear it will be the Minister of Environment of Australia who will lead this, Mr. Owen. They will appoint the Youth Climate Action Champion, and they will host the PCOP as we discussed. And in the middle of, sorry, not in the middle, in addition, because COP30 president designate, it will come in 2027. But the fact that it is announced 2 years earlier, the fact that it is announced as the first time ever an LDC, the lowest, least developed country, is important, and therefore we cannot ignore that. We will not focus only for COP31, but we will have to focus on COP32. So it's a journey that hopefully will have its concrete results in Ethiopia. And that's our last slide. How to prepare for this, like kind of a Belém to Addis roadmap for multi-level and urban in climate action. This is of course a working title, but I think it gives the vision for us. The calendar will be important. Here, we just listed in chronological order what to expect. So in February, we'll be meeting in Barcelona again. Global Task Force, UCLG colleagues will host us. We will be using this moment as to prepare all our constituency, and of course, especially the outcome from this year and preparation for next year will be important. UNAT results will be given in around March. WUF 13 in May in Azerbaijan, in the middle of the first quarter, sorry, at the end of this first quarter, and then we will go to the meetings in Bonn. Daring cities, I'm happy to confirm today as that together with the German Ministry of International Cooperation, BMZ, together with the continued commitment from City of Bonn and all other partners, ICLE is ready to open another round of convening in Bonn. Still, we will be building on the daring cities, but we are also discussing how differentiation we can introduce, how effectiveness we can introduce, taking into all the experiences we had over this 5 years of the daring cities process. UCLG World Congress will be in Tanger in the same month in June. We assume G7 summit will be there. In July, a high-level political forum will be important because they will focus on also not just SDG 11, but also the new urban agenda review process will be taking place. In summer, World Cup will take place in the US, Mexico, and Canada. World Cup, Olympics are always, of course, outside these global politics, but it is contributing to the geopolitics, hopefully giving some positive feedbacks. We still hope the way it will be managed this year will also have the same spirit, but you can never know what's going on in the US nowadays. All is possible. There are already concerns. The visas and access is being discussed. It is also the overlapping with the 250th anniversary of the US. So you can expect a lot of things will move in the US on these days. In UNCCD, the certification COP17 will be in Ulaanbaatar. And then it will be around August, as far as I remember. Urban 2020 will go to New York with the new mayor, Mamdani, being the host. Their like say, Sherpa meeting will also be shared by Los Angeles mayor in June. It will be overlapping or very likely back to back to the UN General Assembly discussions as part of the Climate Week New York City. So we're excited how this will evolve. Pre COP31, as I said, the date is not announced. How we will mobilize Pacific and all the Oceania colleagues there. We will see. Australia is definitely also preparing throughout the year. We have to see. In October, we will be in Yerevan for the Armenia for the biodiversity COP17. We are hearing different news. You have heard there is already a Belém Yerevan strategy at the local level, but the Armenian government, how they will handle it, it will not be easy. And let's remember, it's a country which has less resources compared to other pre-COP other COPs. So and remembering Turkey was at one time planning to host a biodiversity COP, and now the COP31 being close to Armenia, you can expect all these scenarios. It's just hypothetical thinking, but I wouldn't be surprised if Turkey and Armenia also tries to bring COP31 and COP17 together, which will be another innovation we all see. In the middle of these, we will see IPCC process going forward. Already today, tomorrow, there will be a workshop by GIZ. So they will be releasing their first review. There will be experts contributing on that. And let's remember, IPCC is still a topic which is not in a safe space. Even in UN Environment Assembly, you have heard maybe that the scientific reports are being silenced or being, let's say, underestimated. Therefore, having the special report on cities as the first assessment report cycle on the 17th assessment report in coming into the space will be hopefully giving the power that we as cities and regions can help the science also to be getting closer to the local regional government, but also to the global politics. Second point, it will be an important and interesting year. We will have to work with COP30 presidencies. It's not anymore troikas. We have to think about quartets, maybe quintets. When we say these quintets, we can also think about the Brazil, Turkey and Australia, Ethiopia, and maybe even India, because they will be prepared to host the COP, could be involved in all the preparations. In the middle of it, it's interesting because G20 and G7 are purely in the hands of the global north now. US and UK and France and US will share the leadership. So you can imagine there may be even some tensions that the G20 outcomes, how will they be received by the presidencies of COPs, which are mainly in the hands of global south. It can also turn into an opportunity if they manage very well. And finally, global governance. The UN80 reforms is now shaping up. While we were in Belém, the UN Secretary General announced that he wants UNEP and UNFCCC, an interesting combination, to work together on the environment agenda. And finally, we are expecting that this year we will have the UN Secretary General to be named, to be spoken, and the consultations, and it's the process should be confirmed by the UN Security Council, so that none of these five countries should veto any of the UN Secretary General candidates. And this person, how he or she, hopefully she, will take the process coming from this legacy from the Pact for the Future, UN80 reforms, and take it forward will be important. If the tendencies going correct, it could be expected from Latin America. It's also good because Brazil, Colombia, these are the COP hosts over the past couple of years, could start to also to make build the bridge. But obviously, UN Secretary General has a lifespan of minimum 4 years ahead, and then another 4 years if renewed. So this is what to expect. I know we are now 15 minutes left. I would like to stop here, give a break. I see there were some feedbacks on the chat box. For example, I would suggest that maybe immediately you can raise your hands so that we can help you to bring on board. I see Malini, I see Amelia. Obviously, we have forgotten Innovate for Cities into Nairobi. Yes, as you have noticed, this presentation is still in the working. Hopefully, we will have a better agenda presented or better PPT presented in the 4 p.m. session. But definitely, we will include that. Ariel circulated some of the additional links, and maybe Do we see any hands raised so that colleagues can vocally or verbally raise their inputs into the process as well? I think the first colleague who wants to raise hands is it Nadine or
Yes.
yeah, Nadine. It's very good
Hello.
if you can introduce yourself again. We know you very
Yes.
well, but
Hello. My name is Dr. Nadine Bitar, and I was in COP30, part of the delegation of the International Society of Urban and Regional Planners, and also in my capacity as the Vice President for the Middle East region for the International Federation of Landscape Architects. I just would like to thank the LGMA constituency, of course, represented by the Clay team, but also Eunice on their openness for many innovative suggestions we have. And thank you so much for supporting us in most of our sessions. And we look forward to working with you to consolidate the voice of the built environment professionals in the UNFCCC process and also the natural environment professionals. Because as professionals, we navigate through multiple level governance. We work with ministries, we work with local governments, but also work on the ground in the local level. And we'll have multiple individuals from our delegation attend all sessions of this briefing. So other colleagues might also be voicing their opinions. Thank you very much. And that's it for me.
thank you, Nadine. Of course, especially Isaac joined us, LGMA Council, a couple of years back, and you personally was here with us, especially in all the reaching out different delegations, especially in the Middle East region. You were very instrumental, and I think that's our strength that we have new partners, new colleagues joining us and strengthening us.
Yes. And Ifla as well.
Malini, great. I see Malini, a couple of points on Azerbaijan, Armenia, climate action weeks. If you wish, you can come back. I see the dates of the SP in Bonn is defined. I think it is start with 8th to 20th of June. But the daring cities or gathering that we ICLEI will host will be announced later on. Very likely it will be the first week of the first week of the SPs. And Malin, okay, you will follow up later on. Malini will continue to bridge, especially city climate action weeks with town hall COPs and others that we have discussed. So we'll hear more. I mean, this is just the preview. It's not complete as you have seen. Amelia, thanks for highlighting Innovate for Cities. And obviously, this will be an important element. We will all work together. Any additional colleagues, questions? Kobe, I remember Ingrid was planning to come back on the biodiversity agenda next year, especially with COP17. I'm not sure whether you want to take her slot. I'm not sure whether Ingrid is in the line here now today. Ingrid is here. Okay, I see your hand now. Ingrid, please go ahead. I see your message. Okay.
Thank you. Can
Okay.
everybody hear?
Yes, we hear you very well.
Yeah. Okay, great. So I think just very quickly on COP17, in fact, the whole of next year is going to be a very busy year for biodiversity because we do have the biodiversity COP taking place in October from 19th to 30th in Yerevan. And incidentally, they've just launched, I think it was yesterday, the COP logo and the sort of theme being taking action for nature. But before that, there's a huge buildup of other events, and we're busy working on this roadmap. So it starts already in February this year with the subsidiary bodies meeting in Rome. Then the second lot of subsidiary meetings will be in August. That will be in Nairobi. And in between that, sort of sandwiched between that, is the Convention on Migratory Species COP, which is taking place in March in Brazil, in Campo Grande. Obviously, it's a far more technical COP because it's very species related, but it is nevertheless an important one, particularly from the perspective of ecological connectivity. Then WIF is also an opportunity to profile the nature agenda. And then in July, in fact, there's the Nature Positive initiative, of which ICLEI is a core member. It's having its second global summit, and that's taking place in Kumamoto in, I think it's the 14th to the 16th of July in Japan. And we've already started discussions. We're part of the organizing team together with the NPI and ICLEI Japan. I think the Ministry of Environment is also supportive of it, as well as IUCN Japan. And we're in discussions with the CBD Secretariat at the moment around using that opportunity to focus on two things. The one is biodiversity mainstreaming, which brings in the business sector, and the other is using it as a platform to help position our constituency sort of ambitions as that leads into the SPI meeting in Nairobi and then in Yerevan. And in addition to those events, there's a host of other events, regional events. For example, there's going to be an ASEAN Biodiversity Conference either in April or in August in the Philippines, which is the second one. The first one took place this year. It was spearheaded by Mayor Koro, which is ICLEI's biodiversity portfolio lead. But there's also events in the SADC region. There's events in Japan. There's the related events. For example, there's the UN Water Conference, which takes place in December. There's the our Oceans Conference in Kenya. And then the World Bank will have, you may recall, in the pre-COP this year, they had the Global Program for Sustainable Cities Mayors Roundtable in Rio de Janeiro, and also the Urban Nature Forum. So these are just some of the most important events that are being lined up. And ICLEI Cities Biodiversity Center, we're busy planning a webinar series. I think the lessons we learned through the LGMA exercise, those beautiful examples that Ariel reported on just now, those documents around the guides and the position, etc. We're taking on board those lessons and learnings, and we're going to be we're developing a series for, just basically building up towards COP and supporting cities in terms of how the negotiations run, what are the key themes and topics, what are the intervention possibilities, etc. So that we will probably announce early in the new year. I think let me leave it at that. Thanks, Eunice.
Thank you, Ingrid. Of course, one of the topics that is coming in, as we have mentioned today, UN Environment is still going on. There's synergies across the Rio
Yeah,
Conventions, the nature,
yeah,
biodiversity-related process, the clustering agendas. It will become more topic. We discussed this last year, and there were challenges in the UNFCCC process. I think after the UNEA's completion, especially this year, we will have to dig into it more carefully as ICLEI, as LGMA. It will be a big topic this year. And it's so
yeah,
good that we have now so many opportunities, but also the idea of convergence, how we make this to streamline, as you said. We will continue to have this the second annual review in Bonn during these three Rio conventions, building on the cities and regions summit outcomes that UNEP has started to work with IIS as well. It will be an interesting era. I see Amelia and then Kobe, her hand is raised. Amelia, let's hear from you.
Thanks, Eunice, and thanks, Ariel, as well. It's really brilliant to see all these outcomes in one presentation. It's just such an impressive level of mobilization. I think seeing all those comms pieces together, including that really fantastic outcome document, it's not easy at all to summarize, all those technical negotiating strands into something that's pithy and cuts through. So yeah, I really applaud your work and the team's work too. I think the reflections from the negotiations were really interesting as ever, Eunice. I think the other thing I really felt just from being on the ground was the really great teamwork and the ability of the constituency to be quite flexible within kind of the boundaries of what had been agreed as the overarching position to basically respond to what was some quite difficult politics on the ground between parties. So I think everyone worked really well together there and sort of ending up with asking for sort of a dialogue on multi-level cooperation as things became kind of more and more politically tricky towards the end was sort of a really interesting pivot. And I'm just really looking forward to continuing the conversation towards Ethiopia and sort of thinking this further through in the new year. So yeah, I just wanted to add that, but thank you for the presentation today. It's great to see.
Excellent. Thanks, Amelia, and we'll count on your contributions in the years ahead. I see Kobe, but remembered I just forget the last slide, which is the internal debate, because what you mentioned here, Amelia, was exactly on that point. How will you now align ourselves into this new era? We are definitely seeing that the mechanics of the global processes is evolving. We have to build on our achievements, and we have to make it even stronger and more resilient and much more robust. So we are saying that in this implementation era, how the LGMA can become even more dynamic, how we can make sure that we are year round, and how we can benefit from this diversity of processes and experts and partners. So this, you remember, this is a discussion we kicked off already a couple of years back, and during this year, in the middle of the year, we also discussed a bit more the idea of whether we can create a steering committee, which was more or less the drafting committee that has taken the lead in this position. We discussed about thematic groups being much more framed and better aligned, and producing the results as early as possible. As you mentioned, the release of these documents could have been better managed, but it all takes time and it all takes experience. How will we use the experience from LGMA Brazil, especially in going to Africa, in Oceania? Are we ready to think about it? We know there are discussions in different parts of the world, like US, Europe, how we will integrate this to them, these to our processes. Whether we would continue to think of an advisory group, which is the higher levels of our leaders inside our networks, so that it is they can introduce new or additional guidance to us more regularly throughout the year, so that we can bring their expertise. And how we will work our spokespersons, how we can make them ready early in the year, how we can work with them so that they can also work both at the national level and at the global level. So of course these all depends on resources, these all depend on the other partners processes. UNFCC, we are aware it's also going through. So let's see how we will make on that. But definitely in the next couple of weeks, as early as in the first couple of weeks of January and February, we have to advance on that. We from our side are ready to come with some ideas. I think by the time we reach to the global task force meeting in Barcelona in end of February, we should make more progress on that. And as we said, we will come back to you with some ideas. I remember Kobe had a hand, Kobe, if you are still there, please
Yes.
let's have your two minutes, the last 2 minutes.
Thank you, Eunice. And just briefly, I just want to compliment what Ingrid was saying. And in the spirit of Amelia, also your very welcome remarks here, and Eunice, your response to that. The LGMA is so strong and impactful because of so many networks and so many voices coming together and working in unison. And I think that's also in the same spirit that I think Ingrid was making her comments. ICLEI may have broken open that space some years ago, but these days it's not us alone at all anymore. It's so many of our networks and our partners on this call, Regions 4 in particular, but so many others. And if there are other networks or LGMA colleagues here who want to become more engaged in the biodiversity parallel agenda to the climate agenda, you are so welcome. We need all of us together. I'm thinking of the leadership provided by regions like Quebec, etc., and frontrunner cities all over the world. That's really where we get our strength from, and it's all in unity and working in a very collaborative and open way. And we welcome all your inputs. And certainly, just coming back to the climate agenda, just to say that here in Africa, if I can put my Africa hat on for a second, we already so excited about COP32, and we're working closely already with our C40 colleagues and others in building a good roadmap, also with the African Union and African Development Bank, etc., to build a strong roadmap towards COP32, building on COP30 and what came before that, and also what will come out of the COP31 process, which we are also looking forward to with a keen eye. So we will, for one, certainly continue with the town hall COPs as a concept. I think not only here in Africa but elsewhere as well. And there's so much to build on, but so much more work to do. So both on the biodiversity fronts, as well as the climate fronts, and increasingly, I think also the water global agenda is really picking up steam with excellent opportunities for the LGMA to come on board in a unified way. So thank you very much for that.
And Kobe, I think it's not that you forgot, but I think you are a bit more humble because Australia will also, through your role in Oceania's work of ICLE, but also with the GCOM Oceania,
Yeah.
we look forward to your contribution because Australia Pavilion this year was fantastic. Our partners and leaders
Yes.
from Australia, mayors and all the governors, so all the other representatives. So we will count on your efforts on that, so that we will make sure that there is this connection to all relevant leaders. So
Yeah,
let's
we're
see.
kickstarting in Australia with a bumper Sydney Climate Week. So looking forward to that. Thank you.
Oh, you're muted, Eunice. You're muted.
Sorry, confusing with all these buttons and all to make sure that we're all in the same appropriately manner. So I forget sometimes. So we are over our hour. So obviously this was just a recap and then like the pre-starter for 2 years ahead. I would like to thank you all, both not just for this webinar, but throughout the year. It was a fantastic journey, and we are so proud and happy that we have delivered our homeworks for sure. We are on the way that we would like to build further, and we look forward to our partners from the national and UN system, and the diversity and unity in diversity of LGM is our biggest strength. The work will continue, but let's have some rest, give a break a couple of weeks, and then start further. Take care. Have a nice day. Bye bye.